Hey, church family. If you weren't aware of it already, but I'm sure you already are, Christmas Eve is next week. I want you to know, I should be really honest, I want you to know that I am as disappointed as you are, maybe even more so, that we're not able to have our normal packed house Christmas Eve service this year. I mean, this is one of those times in the year that has a very special place in my family's heart. You know, in fact, we've been known to actually leave visiting family in Florida to drive back home on Christmas Eve to be able to walk into the building in time to join everyone for the service. Our family loves this night so much. And I say that because I really just don't want you to think that we made this decision to go virtual this year lightly. There were a lot of factors that went into it. But this year's Christmas Eve service, it's going to be unique, just like 2020 has been. And I want us to think about it as an opportunity. People have been working hard behind the scenes to make this a very special night. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to snuggle up with your family. You know, invite some friends over, have dinner with them, snuggle up on the sofa with them if you want to, but plan to tune in at 6:30 and join us to celebrate Emmanuel, God with us. The service will be available on redemptionhill.com just like Sunday morning services are. So 6:30, Christmas Eve, join us for our Christmas Eve service. But now Pastor Shelby has made another update video for us to follow up from last week. So let's hear what God's doing in his world and in his life right now. So take it away, Shelby.
Hey, Redemption Hill, Shelby here. I promised you last week that I'd take this week to give you a little bit of insight into some of my experiences over the past year. For those of you who don't know, last February I was diagnosed with T-cell lymphoma, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. So I was diagnosed with leukemia, which is basically a cancer of the blood. Now, there is no cure for leukemia, but it was determined very early on that because of the type of leukemia I had, and just because of my age and just general health, that the most curative procedure that they wanted to pursue with me was a bone marrow transplant, or what's now called a stem cell transplant today. And so we said, sure, let's do it. But before that process could happen, they had to eliminate all of the existing cancer in my body. So I basically had to be in remission before they could go forward with the actual stem cell transplant. So between February and August, I underwent 7 rounds of chemo, which by about month 2 or 3 had completely eradicated all of the existing cancer cells that were floating around in my bloodstream. And then they tossed in a few more rounds of chemo just for good measure, just to keep it down, because blood cancers can be a little squirrely that way, and that they can hide in just different parts of your body. And so here at the top of the fall, they gave me a few weeks, a few months, just to sort of recoup from all the chemo before I moved into the stem cell transplant process. Now, in my head, I just have visions of them having to go into my hip and suck out marrow and then put new marrow back in. But that's actually not how it's done these days. It's a stem cell transplant, which means it's just kind of like you were getting an infusion of blood. So the actual transplant itself is pretty anticlimactic. I know I was pretty nervous leading up into it, just because I didn't really know what to expect. But the actual transplant itself is pretty simple. Probably took 30 minutes. They put someone's a donor's stem cells in me, and I'm sort of in the same place I was then right now. It's just sort of waiting for the new cells, the new stem cells, to engraft to your bones and to start producing new cells, which will comprise the foundation of my new immune system. But prior to all that, they have to kill your existing immune system. So a week prior to me getting the transplant, I had to undergo total body irradiation, which is absolutely miserable. And then they followed it up with another chemo chaser. That was just some super chemo they give you just to make sure that the radiation killed all of your existing bone marrow and all of your existing immune system. And then after that's done, then they give you your transplant or your new cells. And so in the weeks that followed after that, you're really just suffering the side effects of the radiation and the chemo, which just means your numbers just flatline at zero. You just feel miserable. And you're just waiting for your new immune system to graft itself to your bones and to start producing new cells. But that's sort of where I'm at now. As I said last week, I'm doing well as far as the doctors are concerned. My new donor cells are producing 100% of all the new cells in my body, and so that is a good thing. I'm ahead of the curve a little bit as far as their timetable goes in what to expect. They've started weaning me off some of the immunosuppressant drugs that they initially put me on. And as those doses have come down, I've started to see and feel some of the side effects from the stem cell transplant. One of which is called graft-versus-host disease, which is simply your new immune system attacking whatever remnants of your old immune system are left over in your system. And it's actually a normal thing, and it's actually a good thing because it shows that your new immune system is working. It's just something just to work through with me and the doctors right now. And so you can kind of see on my face, it's kind of like a rash almost here and here, and there's some on the back of my neck and on top of my head, which I initially thought was just hair coming back in. But yeah, the doctors took one look and said, no, that's just some mild a GVH, they call it, graft versus host. And so that's really that's the first time I've had any side effects from it. But again, it's perfectly normal, perfectly healthy, and it just shows that everything is working. I have tons of fun, at least in hindsight, some fun stories that I'm happy to share with you. I probably won't do it here over mass media, but if you ever want to sit down and hear some of my funny hospital experiences, I'm happy to share. But that doesn't mean that there weren't just some dark, lonely times in the hospital the past year, and it was really during some of those lonelier moments that God ultimately brought me through those times just by simply remembering who He is and what He's done for me, where He's brought me from, remembering to just find my ultimate satisfaction in Him, remembering to be fruitful with what He has given me. Nothing that I've experienced or am experiencing right now is surprising or disappointing to God. I'm just simply reminded now, that God has cared for and He has comforted me through this entire process. And in doing so, He's just caused me to remember that God cares about and He knows every one of my sins. He knows every time that I've turned away from Him. He knows every one of my desperate moments in that hospital. He knows every one of my unmet hopes, every cynical thought towards Him, every crippling fear. He knows and was there for every one of my lonely moments, for every overwhelming crisis, every despair, every feeling of rejection. He knows everything about me. And yet, I still woke up this morning. God has sustained me the past number of months. He has sustained me today. He gave me breath this morning. He gave me what I need to live a full day. And for some reason, in His knowledge that is greater than mine, and in His care and provision and compassion that are way more imaginative and sufficient than I can conceive, He has not allowed the atoms that hold me together to dissolve. The cancer-ridden blood that flows through me to consume me. And this care that God has for me isn't just some cosmic pat on the head saying, there, Shelby. No, God feels deeply for me. Hebrews 5:7 says, "In the days of His flesh, Jesus offered up prayers and supplications with loud cries and tears to Him who was able to save Him from death, and He was heard because of His reverence." Jesus, who is God's perfect expression of His attitude towards me, cries over me. He doesn't just love me in action. He loves me in emotion. God is upset by me in a good way. So these are just a few of the things that have provided comfort for me through some pretty dark and trying times the past year, and I hope they can give you some solace as well as you're going through your own crisis because of this whole COVID thing. And so again, if you want to hear some very specific fun stories, I'm always happy to share. Someone suggested that I should even write a book. We'll call it a cancer culture. So I hope to see you guys soon. Have a good weekend.